Hi,
Hi,
how are
hi,
you?
Shiv. Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah,
So, can you tell me about yourself? What all projects you have worked on and your past experience?
yeah, sure. Hi, Shiv. Website. I'm currently working in Techies from past 3 years as a backend Java developer, and my daily task and routines are from the starting from the collecting the requirements from the clients to the development of the application. I'm also involved in the deployment of that application to our production server. And talking about my tech stack includes basic core Java, Spring Boot, Hibernate, and MySQL as a backend database.
Okay. So, how much experience do you have in Core Java?
3 years, you can say.
Yeah. So, uh, what is the difference between a string and string buffer?
String and string buffer.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Basically, string is immutable in nature, and string buffer is mutable. By immutable and mutable, we mean like if I am modifying its string, modifying the data of that string will create a new object and copy all that contents to the new object, and the old one will be destroyed. And the second difference is the performance of performance of the string and string buffer classes. String is slower in nature, and string buffer is fast. And a string consumes more memory, string buffer consumes the less memory. And the storage in string is in string constant pool, and the storage in string buffer is in heap memory. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, what is the difference between final and finally keyword?
Final and finally. Okay. Mm, Final is a keyword, and it is also a access modifier in Java. And second one was finally. Finally is a block in Java, and final is a keyword in which is a keyword which is applicable to class, variables, and methods. And it is a if a variable is declared as final, it is becomes the constant, and it we cannot change its value later onwards. And if a method has been declared as final, so that means the method cannot be overridden by its child classes. And
Okay.
if I'm declaring a class as final, that means it can't be reused, it can't be extended to another class. Okay, so in now finally is a block in Java, and finally block is basically used to clean up the resources which we have opened in a try block.
So,
And
how many ways we can use finally in try block? Like anywhere else we can write finally other than try or catch and
uh, no, we cannot use try without we cannot use finally without try and catch block.
okay. Talking about inheritance, what do you think in how many ways we can implement inheritance in Java?
Basically, inheritance is like single inheritance is that one class is extending another class, and we can also have the multi-level inheritance. And
Hmm.
multiple inheritance is not supported in Java. Uh, Directly, it is not supported, but indirectly, we can have the multiple inheritance.
So what is the problem in multiple inheritance?
There was we can say there was a thing called diamond problem, in which if there are two classes as a parent class and one class as a child class, then in that case which method we are overriding, the child class will be in confusion which method we have to override. So that will be a diamond problem.
Yeah. So what is the difference between abstract method and default method?
Abstract method and default method. Okay.
Yeah.
If an abstract method is defined in an abstract class, so we have to, if I'm extending that class to another class, we have to provide them its own implementation in the child class. But in case of
Mhm.
default method, it is like not mandatory to have the definition of that method in the child class. So we can directly use that implementation also, or we can also override that method.
Okay. Have you worked on threading, multi-threading?
Yes, I have worked on it.
How we can create threads in Java?
We can create by there are two ways we can create a thread. First is by extending the thread class, and second by implementing the runnable interface.
Okay. So when we extend thread class, what all method we override and where the thread starts?
Uh, so yeah, after we are extending the thread class, we have to override a method called run method, and after overriding the run method, we can provide them our own logic in that method, and we do not have to call directly the run method. We can call the thread to start by the dot start method, like t dot
And
start.
what's the case when we implement runnable?
Runnable is also same, like we have the run method.
Okay, so what's the difference between them?
Um, the runnable interface is in marker interface. Only run method is there. Single, like it's a single abstract method. Single abstract method. Yeah. So in that case, it is only one method is there in runnable interface. But in uh, thread class, there are multiple methods available.
Okay. Can we call start method two times?
No, we cannot start call method two times.
What's the purpose of synchronized block?
Synchronized block. Okay, synchronized block basically is came into picture when I am working in a multi-threaded environment, and suppose I want to have a suppose for example I am having an API for charging an API. So multiple threads cannot act on that particular code. If multiple threads are acting on that particular code, so it will create a hazardous situation. Like one thread will update its amount, and another thread will deduct its amount. So to resolve this purpose, we Java came to a solution like if I'm writing anything into a synchronized block, only single thread will be acting on it and modifying its data only.
Okay, so in a synchronized block, we have a piece of code that we want to be accessed by one thread at a time, right?
Yeah.
What about a synchronized method?
Yeah, synchronized block is a simply a keyword. If we write in the method signature, then that method will also be having only one thread at a time.
So, what's the difference between using the synchronized method or in a block? What's the difference in these two cases?
Uh, yeah, suppose like it is a choice. If I'm having a whole method, if I'm creating a whole method as synchronized, so whole method only single thread will be acting on it. And if I'm declaring a particular block of statement like 2 to 3 lines only, the performance issue will be impacted mostly. The whole method will be waiting for the thread to be free, and then another thread will came to that method, and so performance will be impacted in that case.
Can a constructor be private?
Yeah, we can create a private constructor. Yes.
Okay. Have you worked on some design patterns?
Like mostly common design pattern I work like singleton design pattern and factory design pattern.
What is singleton?
Okay, singleton design pattern. Um, like for any Java class, if we are allowed to create only one object, then we can use the singleton class. And the advantage of the single class, like if several people have the same requirement, then it is not recommended to create a separate object for every requirement. Then we have to create only one object, and we can reuse the same object for every similar requirement, so that performance and memory utilization will be like not affected.
Okay. Do you know how many ways we can break the singleton pattern?
In how many ways we can break? Yeah, in multi-threaded environment, singleton pattern can be break. Like we can
Okay.
also have a synchronized block inside it, and we can have the double check if that that instance is initiated or not. So we can have the double check also.
Okay. Other than that,
No, I'm not aware of other.
Okay. How have you worked on some frameworks, Java frameworks?
Yeah, mostly I have worked on Hibernate and Spring Boot.
Spring Boot. So, what annotations you know on in Spring Boot?
Annotations. Okay. The common annotations are like at
Hello.
the rate Spring Boot, at the rate Spring Boot annotation. It basically tells the whole application like this is a Spring Boot application, and the Spring Boot will automatically inject all the beans and dependencies into it. And other annotations are REST controller at the rate service, at the rate repository, at the rate AutoWire. These are some basic annotations.
So, what is at the rate AutoWire
At the rate AutoWire
used for?
is yeah, at the rate AutoWire is used for creating the we can say for creating an object. If I'm referring from REST controller to a service method, so I can create the bean for that class. I can submit that class to the Spring Boot uh, internal working that you have to create the object for that class. You have to create the beans and instantiate that class and call that method. So that is thing AutoWire.
Have you worked on Java 8?
Yeah, I have worked.
What are the new features that Java 8 introduced?
Uh, Basically, Java 8 has a lot of features named as Lambda expression, function interface, default and static method in an interface, datetime API, stream API, and other predefined function interfaces like predicate function and consumer.
Okay. So, what is a functional interfaces?
Function interface is an interface which contain only one abstract methods, and it is used to invoke the Lambda expression.
So, a functional interface only has one method.
Yeah.
Can't it have any other method? Like we can define
Yes.
some other method into it.
Yes,
What
yes,
all
we
methods
can.
can define?
Yeah, we can have other methods like default and static methods. We can have any number of default and static methods inside it.
Okay. So, what is the purpose of default methods in it?
Uh, okay, so default method is basically used if we do not want to override that method in our child class. Default method, if the default method is not overridden, then interface implementation will be used. And if the default method is overridden, then the overridden implementation will be executed.
Okay. What's the exception order in catch block?
Exception order. Uh, yeah, like it is like the child exception should be caught first, and then the parent exception should be caught. This is the natural order we should like programmer has to follow.
Okay. So, you told me about your project that you have used somewhere as security, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So, how you have implemented the Spring security in your project?
So for the I have implemented like authentication and authorization. In authentication, like we are checking the credentials for the user, and we are using the access tokens, and uh, the JWT part is used in our project, which we have implemented.
How you have authenticated the APIs? How you are authenticating each request?
Like if a user is sending us the request for fetching the data, for example, and we are also taking the access token in that headers, and if that access token is valid, so it is a central repository, and every request has to pass from that central repository. So if the access token is valid, then only that API request has to be passed to the project.
Okay. Have you worked on collections?
Yeah, I have worked on, yeah.
So, what all collection you have used in your project?
Mostly it was array list, linked list, and hash map. Mostly these.
So, what's the difference between array list and a linked list?
In ArrayList, if the frequent operation is the fetching operation, then we can go for ArrayList. If our frequent operation is deletion and insertion, then we can go for linked list.
Okay. So you are saying that we fetch while we fetch elements in linked list, it would be slow in comparison to array list.
Yes, yes.
Why is that?
Because in
How's the fetching in both of the cases?
yes, because in array list we are fetching by its indexed, so directly we can go to that index and fetch that item. But in case of linked list, we have to traverse whole linked list to that particular location. So traversing cost will be more.
Okay. Have you worked on hash tables or hash map?
Yes, I have worked on it.
What's the hashing hash code and equals contract in this?
Yeah, if I'm implementing my own hash map, so we have to override the hash code and equals method. The importance of that method is because if for the collision of that, if I'm inserting any elements to the hash map class, so
Hmm.
if the collision occurs, we have to handle that collision. And if there are more collision in our hash map, that means it will result into the poor performance of that hash map. So if I'm overriding the hash code, it should create a different hash code every time I'm inserting. And while fetching the data, the equals methods came into picture. I'm checking if the same data is I'm fetching or not. So equals method came into picture in that case.
So what if I implement a method like one of these method like hash code or equals and let the other method unimplemented? So what's the case? What happened then?
Um, it will not create any issue, but it is like advisable. You have to create your own implementation according to the application you are developing.
And what if in hash code method I'm returning a same code every time? What happens then?
If you are returning the same code, it will create a linked list in that. For example, if you are returning one only, so in that case, at the first index, linked list will be maintained. So performance will be very much low.
Okay. What's the difference between hash map and hash table?
HashMap and Hashtable, okay. In HashMap, like every method is synchronized, but in Hashtable, like in HashMap, every method is not synchronized, and in Hashtable, every method is synchronized. So by synchronization, we means like only one thread will be acting on that. So in a hash table, only one thread will be acting, and in HashMap, multiple threads are allowed. So HashMap is not thread safe, and hash table is thread safe. And in HashMap, null key and value can be inserted, but in hash table, null key value is we can't insert that. We will get the null pointer exception.
Okay. Uh, do you know about concurrent implementation of these collection classes? Any implementation?
Yeah, we have the concurrent implementation. We have the different concurrent collection. We have for like we have existing collection vector, hash table, and synchronized list. So these were performance was not that much up to the mark.
Hmm.
So Java has provided the other classes like concurrent hash map, copy on write array list, and copy on write array set. So we have these three classes.
Okay. What is the difference between comparator and comparable?
Uh, okay, so comparator and comparable. In comparable, compare to method is there, and in comparator, compare method is there. And compare to method accepts only single value, and compare methods takes two values at a time. So if like in compare method, if the two values like if object one is greater than object two, negative will be returned, and if object two is greater than object one, positive is returned, and if both are same, zero will be returned.
Okay. Do you know about the hierarchy in exceptions. What is the parent class and what are all the components inside it?
Yes, yes. So the parent, the most topmost parent class is the throwable class, and their child is exception and error. And inside exception, we have runtime exceptions, IO exceptions, and servlet exception, and many other. So runtime exceptions is in exception we have arithmetic exceptions, null point exceptions, and index out of bound. These are exception we have in runtime exception, and in error we have uh, many like stack overflow exception, out of memory error, virtual memory error. So these are we have, are having in error class, and runtime exceptions and its child classes are checked exceptions, and error and its child classes are unchecked one.
Hmm. What are generics and why we use generics in Java?
Generics are basically used for the type checking, and suppose if I'm inserting any data into our array list class, and I'm changing its contents. So at first I'm inserting integer, and in second I'm inserting a string. So while traversing that array list, we'll be getting the class cast exception, or the same data is not found. So to overcome this, generics was came into picture, so we can have only single type of data type into any classes.
Do you know the working of a hash table?
Hash table, yes, yes. So by default, the capacity of hash table is 11, and its fill ratio is 75%. And if I am using hash table dot put method, so it will create the hash code for the key, and it will get it's the hash code, and by that hash code we can uh, put that value into the bucket of that hash table. So suppose the capacity was 11, so 0 to 10 bucket was created, and I'm inserting 5 comma a. So hash code of 5 will be calculated, and it will be stored in the respective index of that hash table. And suppose in later parts I'm inserting 7 comma b. So for example, if 7 and 5 hash code collides, suppose they have the same hash code, in that case the same data will be inserted in the same node. So the linked list will be maintained in that part, and after certain linked list size, like 7 size, after Java 7 it was changed to balanced tree, not the linked list. Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Vaibhav. It was great talking to you. I'll update my status with HR. You can get back to HR for S2.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Bye.